This is KTVO's Good Morning Heartland.
And welcome back. All kids in the Heartland are now back to school, but the return to school comes with illnesses. Dr. Justin Puckett from Complete Family Medicine is here this morning to talk about some of the conditions you might hear when your child brings home that school note. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Well, we have quite a few that we're going to talk about, and looking at this list, I'm sorry to say that I've been a victim to a couple of these when I was in school. So these are fairly common among school children, but also very easy to, I would say, avoid at the same time. Hopefully, right?
In some cases, absolutely.
All right, so the first one we're going to go ahead and talk about is lice. So first, before we talk about lice, why is it going back to school seem to have all of these come with kids back home?
Well, it's kind of the same concept when Grandma told us that whenever winter comes that it's cold and we get sick. It really doesn't have anything to do with the cold. It has the fact that we're restricted into a confined space with a group of people. So when it's super cold outside, we all stay inside with everyone else and we share germs. Well, the same thing is true at school. Whenever you take a group of kids and you put them in a classroom and they're sharing markers and scissors and who knows what else, and definitely sharing all of their germs, then it just we really see an uptick in these diseases during the school year, and especially in the beginning of school year, because everybody's got to share everything right away.
Right. So the first one we're talking about is lice. So I feel like that's fairly common amongst school children. I know that I had lice when I was in first and second grade. So let's talk about that. Yeah.
Head lice is a little bug that lives in the hair, and it causes a horrible itch, and it's usually seen by noticing that there's a nit or a little egg sac that's just less than a half an inch or so from the scalp, and then sometimes you'll see other little white shafts further out. Now there's lots of things that can look like head lice, but head lice themselves are pretty clinically easy to diagnose, and there's a variety of ways to treat it over the counter. And you know, one thing I want to mention about head lice is there's for some reason a cultural perspective that it happens in kids who are not well kept or in low socioeconomic status, and that's not true. Both of us had kids, and both of us had head lice when we were kids, and so it just happens. It's one of those things that you just want to watch for and make sure that you take action early, because from hair to hair transmission is pretty high. Good news is that hats and such isn't very likely to transmit.
Oh, that's good to know. Now let's talk about ringworm.
Ringworm is a fungus that lives on the skin. It can be anywhere on the body, but it likes to go on the head. We call that tinea capitis, and it's a very difficult to treat fungal infection. Often the topical ointments don't work, and so it requires some prescriptions. But because it's so easily transmitted from touch, it's one of those things that if it exists, it needs to get treated, be kept covered when you're at school. Look for it has that characteristic round ring, and is very itchy. And then we also get to thank our little cats, because they're the #1 transmitter outside of kid-to-kid contact, is that cats can carry that and transmit it back and forth.
Interesting. Now let's talk about the hand, foot, and mouth disease.
Hand, foot, and mouth disease happens in a big outbreak, and everybody gets excited every year. It's a viral infection that's caused by the Coxsackie virus. It really doesn't have any aggressive treatment. It's noted to have little sore blisters on the hands, on the soles of the feet, and then blisters around the mouth or even in the mouth, and usually accompanied with normal upper respiratory symptoms, so fever, runny nose, cough, those sorts of things. Viral condition, let it run its course, but you do want to keep that kiddo away from other kids. With many of these viral illnesses, the unfortunate part is that they're actually quite contagious, most contagious, for several days before any symptoms persist. So for the Coxsackie, a couple days before you get sick, you're shedding that virus. And so once you've got the disease, you can still continue to, once you've got the symptoms, you can still continue to share, but it's much less likely.
All right, now scarlet fever.
Scarlet fever happens after a sore throat. It's that sandpaper rash. The thing that we worry about with scarlet fever is that about 3% of those will progress even when treated to rheumatic fever, which can cause a whole variety of heart issues. So if you've had a sore throat or even not, and you develop that characteristic sandpaper rough rash, then that's something to seek treatment for.
All right, and the very so common pink eye.
Pink eye happens in 3 different ways: allergic, viral, and bacterial. Reality is that school doesn't want them there with any pink eye. We have very little resistance with antibiotics, and so we use those a little more freely. It too is passed primarily from touching the eye, touching something else, and then bringing that bug to yourself.
All right, chickenpox.
Chickenpox is happening again more frequently than what we thought we were going to be seeing it now. Most of us parents remember what it was like whenever we went through it, but because folks, 2 reasons. People are not getting their second chickenpox vaccine. One chickenpox vaccine only protects you about 85%, and so you need 2. After the age of 5th grade, school's not checking that, so everybody needs to really check their immunization record, and if your kiddo hasn't had 2 chickenpox vaccines, you need to get to the doctor. And you get that first one at 1, and if you get any other, if you hear that there's an outbreak of chickenpox, you need to get back to the doctor and get that second shot so that you can have the full protection.
Interesting. Now let's talk about Fifth disease.
Fifth disease is that slap cheek disease. So it's another one of those viral infections caused by the parvovirus B19. Most characteristic is the nice red look to the face. I remember Fifth disease, 5 fingers, looks like you got slapped, and it's another one of those. Just follow along; it'll run its course.
All right, now impetigo.
Impetigo is a staph infection that can happen in any sort of a wound. It can just happen sporadically. It generally happens on the face or extremities. It kind of makes that honey-crusted, scabby-looking appearance and needs antibiotics. Get to the doctor.
All right, and let's go ahead and talk about whooping cough. I feel like I don't hear about that as often, but it's making a comeback.
It is. Again, there's with the popularity of not getting vaccinations, that has been presenting. It happens. We see it most affecting our little kids and our older generations, and it's a normal upper respiratory type illness caused by a bacteria that can be treated, and if early treated, hopefully it'll stop the long-going whooping cough. But the whooping cough can happen, and that's those big spells of coughing to the point of vomiting, headache, and those coughs, even after treated and the bug is gone, those coughs can persist for up to 3 or 4 months.
Wow. All right. Now we do have a couple others that we didn't have time to touch base on because we are running out of time. So what we'll do is we'll post everything on our website at ktvo.com, as well as the other ones that we didn't touch on. And that way, if they have any questions or concerns or might fear that their child might have one of these illnesses, to contact their doctor, including Dr. Puckett at Complete Family Medicine. All right.
Thank you.
And we'll post everything on ktvo.com, and we'll be right back.